India has now become the largest market for Trump-branded properties outside of North America. There's more Trump projects in India than any other country except the US.
How difficult it was or how easy it was to enter a new city
I mean, I wouldn't say easy, but it's nothing
that you cannot crack.
Yeah, exactly. It's nothing you cannot crack. Real estate is actually two different businesses. One is the land business and the second is the product business.
How important locations are for your projects?
So I'm going to give a very unconventional answer to this, right?
What is your thought process on the increasing cost, the maintenance of building such complicated facades?
I'm okay with increased capex, which is on us as a developer. We try to make sure that our increased capex does not lead to increased OPEX, costs that our customers will have to bear. Execution on ground is far easier if you've thought through every last bit of it on the drawing set before you start doing it.
You have had any particular failures?
Plenty. The secret to being successful as an entrepreneur is to fool yourself into believing that you can do something.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Speaking Real Estate Podcast. Today with us we have a very special guest, Mr. Kalpesh Mehta, who is the founder of Tribeca Group. Today is going to be a very good session because today the company has been a little different in terms of performing or the business model it operates on, and it is going to be a lot of learnings from operating in different cities to doing branded residences, and there are quite a few differences that I have spot in the kind of working Tribeca is. So welcome to the podcast, Kalpesh ji, and I'm very delighted to host you.
Thank you, Krish, and thank you to the audience for watching. I appreciate being here.
So starting off, I want to know about your education and your journey before starting Tribeca.
It's a long story. Very quickly, I'm an architecture school dropout, so I did a year of architecture college here in India. Then I went to the US and I majored in computer science at the University of Texas in Austin, and I did my MBA from Wharton in real estate and finance. The journey before Tribeca was a convoluted one. Like I said, I came from a family of architects. Growing up, I thought I'd be an architect. I wanted to build buildings in India. But architecture school didn't suit me, or I didn't suit architecture school. So I all my family are architects, my dad, my cousins. So I went to the US, did something totally different, computer science and tech and such. It's only when I went to business school at Wharton is when I sort of came back a full circle back into real estate. And after graduating Wharton, I worked with the Carlyle Group. It's a large private equity fund based out of New York. I was investing in luxury condominium development projects. And then I moved to India with Lehman Brothers doing real estate private equity. Did that for a few years, even past the bankruptcy, and started Tribeca in 2012. So that's the short version of the convoluted journey.
So like working in different companies might have given you some exposure.
Of
you
course.
Want to talk about some experience that it gave you and how it helped you in giving that vision to start a real estate company. From where or what point that transition started happening?
Sure. So I'm a good Jew. So starting my own business was always in the cards. I wasn't quite sure at a young age what that would be exactly. But with Carlyle in New York, I learned, the financial discipline of underwriting real estate projects, and underwriting super luxury residential projects in New York gave me a taste for, what global luxury stands for and should be like. And when I came to India working with Lehman, it gave me an understanding of how the Indian marketplace is. And that's really where the idea of Tribeca started, because what I saw was the market lacked true luxury product. And in fact, the market lacked good product, at least back when I, came back to India. And that's because most, I would say not all, but a lot of developers were mostly land experts. And, in a city like Mumbai, once you are done clearing land, you're so out of energy
Right.
there is little left, on the product side. And I said, why don't I fashion Tribeca to focus just on the product and become the best product developer, in the country. And I could partner with people who could do land much better than I knew how to do land. And this allows me to just, be focused on the product and not have to worry about, all the other stuff that goes in before a project is ready for launch, or sorry, before it gets sort of the land piece sorted. And that's where sort of that was the idea of Tribeca, to create trophy projects, to create landmark projects in India. Because to go back to what I learned, right, in New York, I saw that every micro market had this one project that sold at big premiums, 30, 40, 50% premiums to everything else in the market. It was very respected. These would be respected projects that everyone wanted to be in. I call them trophy projects. And to me, that seemed like a good business model for India at the time, and even now, which is just deliver the best product and command that premium over everybody else, and then you're in business. So that's, that was the germination of the thought.
I think so. From that thought, from having that idea and finding that gap, you have been successfully executing the gap that was there and fulfilling the need that was required. So coming to the getting the Trump brand to India, if you could talk about how that happened and how it has helped you in entering the Indian real estate market.
Sure. So all the Trump kids went to Wharton. We weren't there at the same time, but a professor of mine who was a mentor to me was also a mentor to the Trump kids, and he kind of made this marriage happen. And Trump were looking at growing India. Sitting in New York, you can't do deals in India. And then with me, they found somebody who had done New York and was now doing India, did new real estate, could think New York, could execute India. So that's how, when I was 34 and Donald Trump Jr. was 34, we stitched the deal on the back of a paper napkin, in at a bar in New York, and that's how we started. And it's been great for Tribeca and for Trump, right? India has now become the largest market for Trump branded properties outside of North America. There's more Trump projects in India than any other country except the US. Tribeca has become the largest developer of Trump properties in the world after Mr. Trump himself. And it really provided a launch pad for Tribeca, right? Typically when a developer starts off, they start with a 1-2 lakh square feet, a small project. Our first project was a 1.2 million square feet project in Gurgaon, which was Trump Towers, Delhi NCR. So it really we kind of exploded on the scene with a very big project. And the good thing about Trump, the brand, is it allows you to stretch your elbows and push the limits when it comes to luxury, because the customer is going to appreciate it and going to pay for it. If I was launching a project under my own brand, I wouldn't maybe feel in the beginning as comfortable spending that kind of money on those kinds of specs.
Couldn't get that premium.
Correct. I wouldn't get that premium, and because I couldn't get that premium, I couldn't afford to spend that much extra.
Right.
And create as much drama in the product. So that's how a brand like Trump helps you. It just allows you to sort of push the limits.
I think so. It gave a very huge boost in the very initial starting phase itself.
Of course.
Knowing that you are the one handling it in India.
Correct.
Passed on all that goodwill of Trump to Tribeca very directly.
Of course.
And enabled people to trust the Tribeca brand already.
Of course. So all of that also.
Everything went very well.
Yes.
So coming to, I want to understand your business model under which you are currently operating, out of which, pointing out two things right now. One is, I'll talk about a small-sized developer or a person who is starting as a developer.
Sure.
Normally, people's strategy is to focus on a particular market. Like if they are in the Bombay market, they'd focus no, I'll stay in the western suburbs or I'll stay in the South Bombay, I'll dominate this market, I'll deliver good buildings over here. And people find it very unimaginable or very difficult to enter even outside a part of Mumbai. And that's a very long shot to think outside Mumbai.
Correct.
So you starting 12 years, you have already entered like multiple markets
Right.
and delivering. So how do you operate?
So there is one very interesting thing about our business model that allows us to do exactly what you said. And I didn't realize it, back then, but my, 5-6 years in, my friends started telling me the same thing. We don't cross the western suburbs or we don't cross the eastern suburbs. And how are you operating all these in all these different cities? And that's because of our business model where we're not a traditional, we don't follow the same model as traditional developers, which is, acquire land, clear out tenants, and go through that whole process, which, could take 2 to 5 years. We partner with people who are good at that, who've done that already. And we come in once the land bit is taken care of. And we usually, our partners stay with us and they take care of, all the ongoing land stuff and the approvals. And we focus on what we do best, which is design, sales, marketing, construction, delivery. And that's what allows, and so there is, real estate is actually 2 different businesses. One is the land business and the second is the product business. And it's 2 separate layers. The second layer, which is a product layer, you can do it anywhere because the principles of designing, building, and selling luxury real estate don't change too much city to city. It's the land stuff,
Which is different.
which is very, very local. And a lot of reason why people don't even cross western suburbs, and I think that's it's a misunderstood situation in that people say our brand is known in Bandra or our brand is known in the western suburbs, and nobody knows us in South Bombay or eastern suburbs, and nobody knew Tribeca before we entered all these cities, and we've non-Trump Tribeca branded projects also. It hasn't created any issue for us, right? We're sitting here in our first project in Mumbai. We'll sell out, we'll do 900 crores of sales, totally sell out the project within 2.5 weeks of launch. This was our first project in Mumbai. So I think the branding bit, again, the principles of designing, building and selling luxury real estate stay the same. And we haven't had any issues.
So you're operating in 4 cities
Correct.
right now? Okay. So how does the structure of the organization work?
Sure.
Like the team is sitting in one city or
No, that's the complicated bit. So initially, because we started off in NCR, the HO was based out of Gurgaon, and now Mumbai and Pune are becoming our dominant markets, and the HO has moved to Mumbai. But some of our very old hands, so my best guys, are based out of Gurgaon, and that creates sometimes challenges. But look, we're not the first ones. The large corporates have a sort of multi-city model, which and the one we're working on is that most HODs will be based out of the HO, but then there'll be regional P&L heads and supporting regional teams, right? So, for example, a Pune has a region head, a Pune, sales, marketing, etc. The day-to-day is taken care of at the city level, and the central team supports with concepts and the bigger picture stuff. So I don't think any organization has sort of figured out the best structure. There are some people who do everything from their HO with very lean local teams. There are others like Godrej, for example, who started with that first model and now have made the regions very independent. We're somewhere in between.
How difficult it was or how easy it was to enter a new city?
Because we've done it so many times, and my first experience was in Gurgaon, which was not, my home city or a city where I had any experience in. It was hard work, but we did it. And, subsequently we entered, Calcutta, Pune, and I mean, I wouldn't say easy, but it's nothing
that you cannot crack.
Yeah, exactly. It's nothing you cannot crack.
Starting up a new project in a new city, we'll talk about the Tribeca Towers in Bombay. And I was talking to Ashwin as well. Him being in Gurgaon,
right,
and being able to execute in Bombay, not being a resident of Bombay and killing it,
right,
is something very impressive. That comes down to you picking the right person
sure,
for the job. How do you pick the person that you want to have on your team?
I used to have all these lists and criteria when I was starting the business of what, all the boxes that someone should check. I think it's just boiled down to a gut feeling thing now. That a Wharton guy telling you that, right? Like, I go by gut now. But really, that's what it is. But in the back, I think 2 or 3 things are important. A very high level of integrity, a very high level of sort of work commitment. Like, somebody has to really be into what they do, because it's hard work and it's long hours. And for Ashwin, like you mentioned, he has to go back and forth a lot, and it's not easy. So you need a deep level of work commitment and passion for what you're doing, and that comes through when you're interviewing somebody. And lastly, I look for this X factor, right? Somebody who has the hustle, who can both problem solve and be creative. So I say at Tribeca, we're always looking for hustlers. It's not just my job to hustle. It's everyone has to hustle, if that makes sense.
Definitely makes sense. Have you had an experience of maybe like hiring someone and then again removing the person from the job?
Plenty of times. I'm not very good at taking remedial action. So so it happens all the time, right? We've sort of gone from 2 people to 200 plus people in a short span of time, and obviously there'll be hiring mistakes. The best thing you can do as an entrepreneur for yourself, for your business, and for the other person is to take steps immediately, right? Oftentimes it's not the person that is a wrong fit for the job. Maybe there is a miscommunication in terms of expectations. So you always get in and take steps to where the other person understands where there is a gap, and maybe we have the wrong expectations from the person. So it's good to have that conversation. And if it's not working out despite that, then it makes sense for all parties to sort of, part ways. We're very sort of, even the times we've had to sort of take that call, I always think of it as, the company took the wrong call. So we'll give, enough time for the person to look for something else and have a safe landing. We have a very rigorous sort of hiring process. And if somebody's gotten through it, they're usually very good. And if it's not working out for any reason, you just chalk it up to bad luck and you be fair to that person.
That's fair. Coming to one of the important parts of the podcast, that is the product development.
Sure.
And you get fully into it.
Yeah.
From where did you get that view picture of building those products? Where did you get that inspiration from, and how do you make it happen?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, and I can ramble on and on about it. I had no formal training in product design. As you remember, like I said, I dropped out of architecture school. But I've always had this creative side to me from a young age. I'd be walking on World Seafest and be like, I want to put up a building here. So I think at sort of a deep emotional level, I think beautiful spaces and nice architecture makes me happy. I'm just a happy person when I'm surrounded by architecture that is inspiring, clean.
Any particular place you draw inspiration from?
New York, Tribeca. That's where the name comes from. I used to live in Tribeca. Tribeca is a neighborhood in New York, and I used to live there.
Okay.
And when I said I'm going to move to India, I'm like, I'm going to bring Tribeca. I'm
To
going to
India.
bring New York to India. There is so much incredible architecture in the US and lots of cities in the world. And frankly, I thought that was lacking in India back then. We're catching up. So again, at an emotional level, it's just something that makes me happy being in, and that's what I want to create. And where I draw my inspiration from, it's from my travels, from Pinterest. The number of spaces and architectural details in Tribeca projects that I can point to, a single Pinterest image that gave me that inspiration would be more than 50. So it's just you're constantly drawing inspiration from things you see, both physically as well as online. I'll be watching something on Netflix, and I like a table setting or a backdrop setting on a show, and I'll take a picture and put it in in my on my Pinterest, and I'll have a space in mind where I could recreate that. So it comes from all places. There isn't a defined way, but yeah, it's something that I get really, really, really deeply into because I enjoy it.
Definitely. So coming to the execution part of this architecture, how do you one thing is vision, one thing is seeing from something, drawing inspiration from something, but then making that happen and making that building live with that specifications and that beautiful architecture
Right.
is also the major task. I think thinking about ideas is the easy part. Executing
Is the most
that.
challenging. It's the most challenging bit. The stuff that we build and the stuff that I sort of dream of is not usually easy to execute. It has to be converted into not just concept and schematic drawings, but also detailed engineering drawings, right? For example, we don't do conventional facades on any of our buildings. We don't do plaster paint, right? All of our buildings have unitized glass and metal facades that are fully openable with sliding windows. And that's not I've met top architects and developers who couldn't believe that this could be done, but we've been doing it for so long. It needs to be translated into engineering, and you have to have the discipline, and your team has to have the discipline, and your consultants have to have the patience that even if they haven't done this before, they'll get through the process of converting into the last engineering detail, right? Execution on ground is far easier if you've thought through every last bit of it on the drawing set before you start doing it, right? Oftentimes the drawings that most developers in India work on are not evolved to that last final stage, and a lot of decisions have to be taken on the site. And your designers aren't always there, you're not always there, and oftentimes the decisions that get taken are not the most optimal ones. So it's if you put in the time to detail out your drawings to the last level before you even put a hole in the ground, execution becomes far easier. And once you started execution, it's really about having a good quality monitoring team and making sure that the very detailed drawings that you provided are you could have the best QC team, but a poor set of detailed drawings will be a disaster because they don't know what they're QCing because you haven't provided them that last detail.
You have an in-house design and architecture team?
Yeah, we have a good size in-house design and architecture team. We do a lot of our architectural layouting and interior design in-house because I see design as the best design will be a combination of creativity / drama plus understanding of the market plus understanding of the bylaws, and understanding of customer preferences, right? So it's like these 4 levels that you have to innovate against all at once and iterate against all at once to come up with something that's impressive. And most architects will only iterate on the creative level, but not across all 3 sort of layers in the stack. I think it's a developer's job, and a developer is best positioned to understand all of these 4 layers
and to balance out.
And to balance it out, so like cost, approvability, customer preferences, and creativity. So we do a lot of that in-house, and then we, partner with, very good architecture firms to sort of take those things to the next level.
So you do partner out with good architects,
yes,
outsource them as well, and it's a mix of in-house and outsourced.
It's a mix of in-house and
outsourcing.
And outsourced. Yeah, and we only work with consultants in India because we like a lot of any innovation is a result of, it's not an accident, right? It's only through very many iterations that you can get there. And the issue we found with international firms, and there are a lot of very high quality international firms, is just that because of the geographical distance and the time zone issues, it could be 3 to 4 weeks before you get your first concept, and then every iteration takes 2 weeks. Whereas we like to do it, and that's say in those 2 weeks we'd like to do 4 iterations, which is only possible, with a local firm. And because we do so much in-house, and because we're confident in our process, we feel a very strong local design partner is good enough for us.
Very beautifully explained by you the 4 pointers that one has to balance to get the best of creativity, cost, approvability, and the customer preference. Coming to a point of that, the cost, and developing or making these buildings beautiful and also maintaining them will be a task.
Sure.
How do you balance out, or what is your thought process on the increasing cost, the maintenance of building such difficult, or not difficult, but complicated facades?
Yes, very good question. I'm okay with increased capex, which is on us as a developer. We try to make sure that our increased capex does not lead to increased opex, which is, costs that our customers will have to bear. You pointed out facade. The facades we do cost 2.5 times as much as conventional facades. The interiors we do, the common areas, amenities, everything is to the level of the best global luxury hotels. That's not cheap. But it is my very strong belief that if every dollar you spend extra, the customers give you, $1.50, right? So you're going to make that money. And what are we talking? Like, we're selling something in Mumbai at 40, 50, 60,000 a foot, spending an extra 2,000 a foot on giving the best quality. Yes, my customer is going to give me an extra 3,000. Like, there's no doubt about it, right? Like, every project that we have, whether it's under the Trump brand or the Tribeca brand, right? That whole trophy property thing I talked about. We, no matter who we're up against, and no matter which sort of market in India, all our projects trade at big premiums to everybody else in the market, and we compete with some of the largest developers in India. Our day one philosophy was to become a developer of these trophy properties that would, customers would very happily pay big premiums for, and that entails cost, and we're okay spending that cost because we know we're going to get multifold return on that, and it's just as far as I'm concerned, it's just the right thing to do. Like, I couldn't do anything that wasn't amazing. We don't do at Tribeca. It's just I can't do mediocre. As a brand, I don't think we're sort of suited to things that are not landmark and trophy and exciting and amazing. So the facade, sorry, to come back to your question, the facade costs a lot for us to put up. It's additional cost. But it dramatically reduces the OPEX for the society or the RWA once it's taken over, because it's easy to maintain, right? It's just, at our CapEx, we give them a facade cleaning system. All they need is somebody to, go clean it. Unlike plaster and paint buildings that have, leakage issues, that have to be redone every 5 to 10 years, none of that. These these facades will last you 30, 40 years without any increased CapEx. So we're okay with higher CapEx, but we try to make sure that does not lead to an increase in operating costs for our customer.
Tribeca is all about branded luxury developments. You ever see yourself for the increasing the scale of the projects, or maybe increasing the scale of the revenue? Do projects, maybe affordable housing or any entering into, like, right now there are like maybe 200, 500 apartments in the projects that you're doing, or more than that?
Yeah, the projects that we have are between 200 to 500 units, exactly, yes.
So if you plan to scale to like 1,000, 2,000 flats in a project, I think so, like the price, the price that the consumer will bear will come down, and commanding that premium of 30-40% on 2,000 in such a large, huge inventory will be difficult, even if you provide a good product. So, like, if you wish to do that level projects,
right,
do you think still it will be providing that luxury, because that will be the cost to you? I think so.
So look, by definition, 2 to 3,000 unit project is not a high-end luxury project, right? It's going to be more of a, not even affordable. It could be like a general mid-income project. Never say never, but I think affordable housing is not for us. It just doesn't suit our DNA. On mid-income housing, right, it's very difficult to sort of, like, what is mid-income housing? Would you say the western suburbs, are mid-income housing? But we're sitting here in South Bombay. There is projects in western suburbs that, trade at higher prices than central Bombay. We're doing projects in Pune, right? So we could be here. We're selling at, let's say, 40,000 or 50,000 a foot. In Pune, our luxury project sells at 15,000 a foot, right? And I can guarantee you, it's as high a luxury spec as here. So I think every micro market, or I would say the vast majority of micro markets in India, in metro cities, have customers that are willing to pay a premium, or are looking for something that is differentiated, and thus are willing to pay a premium for it. And those are the types of projects that best suit us. There are enough examples of where you can do a 2,000, 3,000 unit project over a long period of time and, sweat the asset to where, it could still be considered luxury. But I think our individual project scale is, 500,000 to 2 million square feet.
It's fair enough for the definition and for the explanation that you gave for the kind of projects that Tribeca does. I think so it's good that there's a clarity and there's a set of few pointers or checklist that the company goes and does. So it's good to have that boundary and that definition.
I think so too.
So coming to your particular few projects, where I did get to know that the Arc in Pune was a project which developers weren't wanting to touch.
Yeah.
And like people were running away to do that project. I don't know the previous history, like might be some litigation or something. I'm wanting to know the story behind it and how you turned it upside down to one of the most expensive houses being there.
Yeah. This was a project conceived by one very incredible guy who's still our partner on that project. Unfortunately, it sort of, for various reasons, it ran into financial difficulties and went NPA with a large bank. And the bank was trying to, sell this project to other developers in Pune, and nobody was willing to sort of touch it because the size and scale and the audacity of what, our partner had planned was fantastic, but most local players thought it to be very high risk. And a deal normally goes out of the city when all the local players have said no to it, right? And so you have to be double careful when you're looking at a deal that everyone has said no to. But anyway, I saw that project the day after lockdown opened. Immediately fell in love. Immediately saw the potential of it, and we closed the deal very, very quickly, and we launched it, and it sold well. I, why it did well and how it did, it's I think we put in the look. In a lot of situations when there's a change of guard, right? When sort of a white knight comes in, the project was good to begin with. People had confidence issues in the delivery. What we did do, so that project, the Arc in Pune, we've built the world's largest rooftop, right? Part of the rooftop was already sort of the civil structure was built before we came in, but there was nothing, there was no finishing that was done on it. So one of the first things we did is we just went in and finished a big portion of the rooftop. We created, a very, very attractive, show flat. One tower was ready. It was a total 6-tower project. One tower was ready. People were living in there. So there was believability from that standpoint. But then in a very short period of time, we showed a lot of work. And we launched it with a, true sort of Tribeca style with a big sort of big burst. And we got lucky with, the market had, March 2021, market had just started to sort of, go up. So a combination of hard work and luck.
I feel at the end, it comes down to your specialty of product development and showcasing it to the people and making them visualize in a very nice way and see what the potential their future home could be.
Correct. I think that's one of our sort of mottos inside of Tribeca is to, create architecture that inspires people and to create spaces that, people fall in love with. Create spaces that people haven't experienced before. And we try to give our customers a sense of that during the sales process so that, they can imagine what our sort of, what our ethos is and then what we're going to, deliver here. I think that's very, very important. And that's what we try very hard to do because, people are taking a bet on you before you've dug a hole in the ground. So you need to sort of really communicate to them, what this thing's going to look like.
Wanting to come at a few personal life of yours, like what would be your daily source of learning or maybe ways to keep yourself updated? Not like just sticking to real estate market, but like overall.
So I don't read newspapers. I stay updated through my source of news is what I see on social media, what my friends forward me, and a couple of digests that I get. Not very particularly tuned into everything that's happening in the world. I follow politics, both US and India, quite closely. That I'll sort of look online, and just talking to and meeting lots of people. I used to read a lot when I was a kid. For some reason, in my 30s, that went away, so I don't read a lot of books. But I do read a lot of content, sort of online articles, etc. And just, talking to as many people. I think there's, no better learning than hearing
Definitely,
it from people, like what you're doing right now.
100%. Best way, I think so. Even if you don't have any sources of social media or like articles or newspapers, by just talking to people, you can keep yourself updated.
Exactly.
I think so. That is the best way. Coming to your, I'm going to go back a little bit.
Sure.
So you have spent good time in New York.
Mm-hmm.
If you can speak about the real estate market in New York, like maybe the kind of buildings and the kind of prices the homes sell, and like, is that something that Bombay can look up to in future?
New York has now become a market of sort of like there's the standard stuff, right? When I was there, the standard stuff was selling at $1,000, $1,200 a foot. That's now gone to maybe 1,800, 2,000. But the trophy properties have just sort of killed it. I remember having invested in this development on the Upper West Side, and we were launching at $1,150 a foot, and this project, which is now a iconic project in New York, is called 15 Center Park West. They launched it was 5-6 blocks away from where we were, and that launched at $2,500 to $3,000 a foot, and I'm like, this is ridiculous.
The gap is huge.
The gap is they have Central Park view, but we have the river view. Fast forward to what is it, 18 years now. That project's gone from $1,150 to maybe $1,800-$1,900 a foot, and this one's gone from like $2,500, $3,000 to $12,000 a foot, right? So, so New York has created these, I would say, 10 to 15 super iconic properties that are just selling at crazy prices, and I think Bombay will get there. I think like a lot of Indian cities will get there. I don't know if we'll ever reach $12,000 of 12 lakhs of a square foot. I wouldn't venture into sort of predicting that, because that's complicated inflation, and if I was that smart, I'd become a bond trader. I would have stayed in New York and gotten on Wall Street. But people will pay big premiums in India for special projects, and inflation will do the rest. So maybe at some point we'll get to 12 lakhs a foot, but by then New York will be at 50 lakhs a foot. So
definitely. So kind of tells us the gap or the opportunity people have to develop in the residential luxury market.
Yeah.
So there's a still very far way that
there's a long way.
We can go to like today also like there's price of 1.5 lakh square foot, and people like isse zyada kya बढ़ सकता है? And
I know
there's still scope.
Yeah, of course.
What would be an advice to a young guy, 20-year-old, for me or anyone else watching, to maybe get into real estate? How is your imagination of the real estate industry versus the other industries?
Okay, so two different questions. Let me answer the second one first. I think the real estate industry globally is still living in the dark ages, right? If you see the level of innovation that's happened across so many other industries, tech aside, but there's so many other industries where the level of innovation has just been tremendous. Real estate hasn't that hasn't happened yet. Not globally, definitely not in India. Everywhere I look, right, every function within real estate, from construction to procurement to sales, marketing, there is glaring inefficiencies that can be squeezed out, and there's a big role of innovation across all these functions. So I think, real estate has a long way to go, and that's the opportunity for a company like Tribeca and for young entrepreneurs, is to find that gap in the market. Don't do what everyone else is doing, because there's, you'll know this better, but how many tens of thousands of developers are there in India? For any entrepreneur in any, business in any part of the world, the name of the game is what's your hook? What are you doing differently? What are you bringing to the table that's different from everyone else? And get into it once you have that, and just never give up. Right? It's there. There are very, 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 very few companies that succeed on their first business model or on their first year. For most people, it's a long slog. It's taking a lot of failure and rejections, and going through a lot of challenging periods where you question everything about yourself and the choices you've made. And despite all of that, just sticking to it. I think 90% of success is just sticking to it when everyone's telling you, including yourself, to give up. In a country like India, where just the general economic growth is going to be so robust for so many decades, if you're a smart, hardworking guy, you really can't go wrong as long as you have, a good model, a good idea. I think you fail if you give up. And if you don't give up, you'll eventually succeed.
You have had any particular failures?
Plenty. Look, when I started Tribeca, the business model was, the conventional wisdom when I started Tribeca was to get into real estate development if you had two out of these three, right? Big land bank, lots of capital, or a big corporate brand. You needed two out of the three. Tribeca didn't have any of those when I started, right? No land bank, no capital, at least not the kind that's required to do large real estate projects, not a big corporate brand. And my rosy idea was, well, I'll partner with people who have the land, and I'll be asset light. And I'd go and meet landowners and developers and be like, hey, we like you, you're a smart guy, but you haven't done anything before. And how do I trust my asset, which is, the largest part of my portfolio, my net worth? How do I trust it in the hands of somebody who hasn't done it before, and who, doesn't have capital, who's not, going to risk a substantial amount?
Right.
So for many years, there was like just falling flat on sort of my face. But you just, stick to it. You have to keep pivoting, right, between different sort of thoughts and ideas. And the crack came when we, initially we were licensing the Trump brand. Mumbai and Pune happened like that. But then the pivot was, well, why don't we sort of marry our DM sort of aspirations with building the Trump brand in India and use it to get developing deals for Tribeca. And that was a pivot that sort of worked. But before that, there were lots of failures. After that, there were lots of failures. Failure is part of the journey, and you have to have the stomach for it. If I were to give one advice to my 34-year-old self about starting Tribeca, I'd look back and say, don't do it. Because if I knew then what I know now about the hardships and the failures and the angst and agony that I would have had to go through, if I knew it then, I wouldn't have done it. Every entrepreneur thinks it'll be easy. And it's thought the secret to being successful as an entrepreneur is to fool yourself into believing that you can do something, and keep fooling yourself that you can do it despite the failures. But you know what? 1 out of 10, it'll stick. And that's when you start.
Right.
The 0 to 1 is never straight.
Right.
And it's never easy. But once you get to 1,
fake it till you make it.
Fake it till, but I don't know, fake it to yourself at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. You brought out the harsh reality of being a businessman, entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Coming to like Tribeca right now has 6 million development going on, and wanting to know what is the future vision, what is your future aspirations, maybe entering more markets or dominating in the markets that you have already entered.
Sure. Good and fair question. So we have the Tribeca portfolio and we have the Trump portfolio, right? The Tribeca portfolio, I think, will stick to Mumbai, Pune, NCR. These are deals where we'll sort of, take capital risk and, do full stack. The Trump branded projects that Tribeca develops, we'll do that in our, core markets, but we're also looking at doing that across all major metros. But we will only do those projects with very strong local players who've done the land, who can get the approvals done. Like I said, I have no business buying a piece of land in Hyderabad, going through the approval process. It's not my market, right? So the model we started with in the beginning of Tribeca is the model that has worked very well for us, which is partnering with local players who will sort of do everything, and we do what we're best at. So broadly, two business models. The vision remains the same, which is to just become India's leading trophy property developer, delivering landmarks, right? We built the world's largest Rooftop. We're the largest developer of term-branded properties in the world. We've built Pune's largest high street retail. Just delivering projects that are special and spectacular, and then start scaling rapidly. We're going through a very nice cycle of growth, both in our economy and in the real estate sector. Knock on wood, it looks like this year will double from sort of that 6 to 7 million square feet we have to 12, 13 million. So in essence, what's taken us 12 years to add in terms of project portfolio, will likely add that in 1 year. So we're now looking to just scale what we've done across core micro markets of our core projects, and then Trump projects across India.
Congratulations to your execution till date, and best of luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
How do you decide locations? How important locations are for your projects?
So I'm going to give a very unconventional answer to this, right? It's location is the traditional answer. My answer is product. Because an A++ product can very easily sell at a B+ location. So obviously, location is very important, and if you have the best site in the city and you marry it with the best product, like we have here with this project, this location is fantastic, and the product is fantastic, and it's just taken off. But you don't always get your choice of the best sites, and that I actually am not. I mean, I won't take a shitty location, but take Mumbai for example, right? You'd be hard pressed to, except for 20-30% of the sites that I see, I'd be hard pressed to say no to a location, right? Because the plot shape and what you can build on it, that's far more important. Just look at so many developers in Mumbai, and I always joke in Mumbai, all premium properties have 3 views, a sea view, a city view, and a slum view, right? It doesn't matter what's around you. Look at all of central Mumbai.
It's nice to see a different way of approach.
Yeah.
So I think so that was good enough for me to get too many things and to know a different way of approach to many different things and a different business model and how you are scaling up. That's very beautiful and something to look up to. Thank you for your time and the knowledge you have shared.
Thank you for the opportunity, Krish. Good luck to you. And thank you to your viewers.
Definitely.
All right.
Yeah.